Hey everybody, how's it going? I've been trying to get work done today. It's been a crazy few weeks. Um, Howie just brought home yesterday Gracie a 30-pound box of food. I paid $140 for it. And it's the same stuff supposedly that we got in the small box. But it's a 1.5-pound package. And when I took it out, I'm thinking it looks brown. It's thawed out brown, and she won't touch it. She went puh when I put some in her mouth. So Howie's going to be taking that box of dog food back, and get our money back. And if he has to, buy the boxes of the 1-pound packages for her, because that's not working. Anyway, welcome to pizza, how lovely. Welcome to, now let's just make sure this isn't, I'm not unlisted, am I? It's not unlisted, it's public, right? Okay. All right, restore the chat. All right. I know she needs to eat. She has eaten 5 days in a row. But if she won't eat this stuff, it's going back. And that means I have to phone Howard. It is public. Okay. So I'll be phoning Howard between this and the Patreon's live stream. I had to wait. I had to get a cup of tea because I'm dry. All right, Little Town on the Prairie. Chapter 18. Literaries. My reading light has to come down a little bit here. Oh, don't break your shelf, Bev. Okay. Chapter 18, Little Town on the Prairie, Literaries. Christmas was near, yet there was still no snow. There had not been a single blizzard. In the mornings, the frozen ground was furry white with hoarfrost, but it vanished when the sun rose. Only the underneath of the sidewalk and the shadows of the stores were frosty when Laura and Carrie hurried to school. The wind nipped their noses and chilled their mittened hands, and they did not try to talk through their mufflers. The wind had a desolate sound. The sun was small, and the sky was empty of birds. On the endless, dull prairie, the grasses lay worn out and dead. The schoolhouse looked old and gray and tired. Oops, excuse me. There's something in my eye. It seemed that the winter would never begin and never end. Nothing would ever happen but going to school, going home, lessons at school, and lessons at home. Tomorrow would be the same as today, and in all her life, Laura felt there would never be anything but studying and teaching school. Even Christmas would not be real without Mary. The book of poems, Laura supposed, was still hidden in Ma's bureau drawer. Every time Laura passed the bureau at the head of the stairs in Ma's room, she thought of that book and the poem and that she had not finished reading. "Courage," he said, and pointed to the land. "This mounting wave will roll us shoreward soon." She had thought that same thought so often that it was stale, and even looking forward to... Oh, excuse me. And even looking... Okay, wait a second. Looking forward to the book for Christmas was no longer exciting. How did she know the book wasn't for Carrie? Friday night came again. Laura and Carrie washed the dishes as usual. As usual, they brought their books to the lamplit table. Pa was in his chair reading the paper, and Ma was gently rocking, and her knitting needles were clicking as they always did. As usual, Laura opened her history book. Suddenly, she could not bear it at all. She She thrust back her chair, slammed her book shut, thumped it down on the table. Ma and Pa started and looked at her in surprise. I don't care, she cried out. I don't want to study. I don't want to learn. I don't want to teach school, ever. Ma looked as stern as it was possible for her to look. Laura, she said, I know you would not swear, but losing your temper and slamming things is as bad as saying the words. Let us have no more wooden swearing. Laura did not answer. What's the matter, Laura? Pa asked. Why don't you want to learn and teach school? Oh, I don't know, said Laura in despair. I'm so tired of everything. I want something to happen. I want to go west. I want to just play, and I know I'm too old, she almost sobbed, a thing she never did. Why, Laura, Ma exclaimed. Never mind, Pa said soothingly. You've been studying too hard, that's all. Yes, put away your books for this one evening, said Ma. In the last bundle of the Youth's Companions, there are still some stories that we have not read. You may read one out to us. You may read one to us, Laura. Wouldn't that be nice? Yes, Ma, Laura answered hopelessly. Even the reading a story was not what she wanted. She did not know what she wanted, but she could not have it, whatever it was. She got the Youth's Companions and pulled the chair out to the table again. You choose the story you want, Carrie, she said. Patiently, she read aloud while Carrie and Grace listened wide-eyed, and Ma's rocker swayed and her knitting needles clicked. Pa had gone across the street to spend an evening talking with the men around the stove in Fuller's hardware store. Suddenly, the door opened and Pa burst in saying, Put on your bonnets, Caroline and girls. There's a meeting at the schoolhouse. Whatever in the world? Said Ma. Everybody's going, said Pa. We're starting a literary society. Ma laid aside her knitting. Laura and Carrie, get your wraps on while I bundle up Grace. Quickly, they were ready to follow Pa's lighted lantern. When Ma blew out the lamp, Pa picked it up. Better take it along. We may want lights in the schoolhouse, he explained. Other lanterns were coming along Main Street and bobbing into the darkness of 2nd Street ahead. Pa called for Mr. Cluett, who was there and had brought the schoolhouse key. The desks stood in weird flickering lantern light. Others had brought lamps too. Mr. Cluett lighted a large one on his desk, and Gerald Fuller drove a nail into the wall and hung a lamp up with a tin reflector. He had closed his store for the meeting. All the storekeepers were closing their stores and coming. Almost everyone in town was coming. Pa's lamp helped the lanterns make the schoolhouse quite light. The seats were filled, and men were standing thick behind them. When Mr. Cluett called the room to order, he said that the purpose of this meeting was to organize a literary society. The first thing in order, he said, will be a roll call. Oh, wait, the seats called the room to order. Okay. The first thing in order, he said, will be a roll call of members. I will then hear nominations for temporary chairman. The temporary chairman will take charge, and we will then proceed to nominate and ballot for permanent officers. Everyone was a little taken back. Felt less jolly. But it was an interesting question. Who could be elected president? Then Pa stood up by his seat and said, Mr. Cluett and town folks, what we've come here for is some fun to liven us up. It does not seem necessary to organize anything. From what I've seen, Pa went on, the trouble with organizing a thing is that pretty soon folks get to paying more attention to the organization than to what they organized it for. I take it we're pretty well agreed right now on what we want. If we start organizing and electing, the chances are we won't be well agreed on who's going to be elected to fill offices. So I suggest let's just go straight ahead and do what we want to do without any officers. We've got the school teacher, Mr. Cluett, to act as leader. Let him give out a program every meeting for the next meeting. Anybody that gets a good idea can speak up for it, and anybody that's called on will pitch in and do his share in the programs the best he can to give everybody a good time. That's the ticket, Ingalls, Mr. Clancy sang out, and Pa sat down. A good many began to clap. Y'all see that? Mr. Cluett said, "All in favor say aye." A loud chorus of ayes voted that it would be so. Then for a minute, no one knew what to do next. Mr. Cluett said, "We haven't any program for this meeting." Someone answered, "Shucks, we aren't going home yet." The barber suggested singing, and someone said, "You got some pupils that can speak pieces?" "How about it, Cluett?" Then a voice said, "How about a spelling match?" Several chimed into that. "That's the notion. That's the idea. Let's have a spelling match." I could never spell. I could never spell out loud. I had to write it down first. I could never see it in my head. Mr. Cluett appointed Pa and Gerald Fuller as leaders. There stood a good deal of joking as they took their places in front corners of the room and began to call out names. I'm scratching my back. Laura sat anxiously waiting. The grown-ups were chosen first, of course. One by one, they went up, and as the two lines grew longer, Laura grew more afraid that Gerald Fuller might call her before Pa did. She did not want to spell against Pa. At last, there was the most anxious pause in Pa's turn to choose, and though he made a joke that everyone set laughing, Laura could see that he was hesitating. He decided and called Laura Ingalls. She hurried to take her place in his line. Ma was already in it above her. Gerald Fuller came, then Foster, last of the grown-ups. Mr. Foster took the place opposite Laura. Perhaps Pa would have chosen him because he was grown up, but Pa had wanted Laura. Surely, Laura thought, Mr. Foster could not be much of a speller. He was one of the homesteaders who drove oxen, and last winter he had stupidly jumped off Almanzo Wilder's horse Lady and let her run away while he fired at the antelope herd, though it was not within range. Rapidly now all the school pupils were chosen, even the smallest. The two lines went from the teacher's desk all around the walls to the door. Then Mr. Cluett opened the speller. First he gave out the primer words, fo, lo, wo, ro, hero. And he caught Mr. Barclay. Confused Mr. Barclay spelled hero. Hero, H-E, he. Row, R-O-E, row, hero. And the roar of laughter surprised him. He joined in as he went to his seat, the first one down. The words grew longer and more spellers went down. First Gerald Fuller's side was shorter than Pa's, then Gerald Fuller's again. Everyone grew warm from the laughter and the excitement. Laura was in her element. She loved to spell. Her toes on the crack of the floor and her hands behind her, she spelled every word that came to her. Down went 4 from the enemy's side and 3 from Pa's. Then the word came to Laura. She took a deep breath and glibly spelled differentiation. Diff, D-I-F. Fur, F-E-R. Defer. E-N-T, ent. Different. I. Differenti. Asian. A-T-I-O-N. Asian. Differentiation. I'm sorry, I wouldn't have been able to spell it by breaking it up like that. Slowly, all the seats filled with the breathless, laughing folks who had been spelled down. 6 remained in Gerald Fuller's line and only 5 in Pa's. Pa and Ma and Florence Garland and Ben Woodworth and Laura. Repetitious, said Mr. Cluett. Down went 1 from the other side, leaving the lines even. Ma's gentle voice spelled repetitious, R-E, re. Pet, P-E-T, repet. I, repeti. T-I-O-U-S, repetitious. Mimosaceous, said Mr. Cluett. Gerald Fuller spelled mimosaceous, mim, osa, mimosa, ti. He was waiting for Cluett. No, si, he began again. That's got me beat, and he sat down. Mimosaceous, said Florence Garland. mimsoa. I'm not going to break it all down here, folks. mim, soa, mimosa, te. And she had been a school teacher. The next one on Gerald Fuller's side went down. Then Ben took his head and quit trying. Or Ben shook his head and quit trying. Laura stood straighter, waiting to spell the word. Now at the head of the other line, Mr. Foster began. Mimosaceous, my, mo, mimo, say, sa, mimosay, ceus, ceous, mimosaceous. A great burst of applause rose up, and some man shouted, "Good for you, Foster!" Mr. Foster had taken off his thick jacket, and as he stood in his check shirt, smiling sheepishly. But there was a glint in his eye. No one had guessed he was a brilliant speller. Fast and hard the words came pelting. Then the tricky words from the very back of the spelling book. You mean mimosaceous isn't a tricky word? I don't even know what that means. On the other line, okay, fast and hard the words came spelling. Then tricky words from the very back of the spelling book. On the other line, every woman went down but Mr. Foster. Ma went down. Only Pa and Laura were left, down to Mr. Foster. Not one of them missed a word. In breathless silence, Pa spelled, Mr. Foster spelled, Laura spelled, then Mr. Foster again. He was 1 against 2. It seemed that they could not beat him. Then, Xanthophil, said Mr. Cluett. It was Laura's turn. Xanthophil, she said. To her surprise, she was suddenly confused. Her eyes shut, she could almost see the word on the speller's last page, but she could not think. It seemed that she stood a long time in a dreadful silence full of watching eyes. Xanthophil, she said desperately, and she spelled quickly, Xan, Zan, Tho, Tho, Xantho, PH, she thought, Grecophil. And in a rush, she ended, IL. Mr. Cluett shook his head. Trembling, Laura sat down. Now there was only Pa left. Mr. Foster cleared his throat. Xanthophil. Xan, Zan, Tho, Tho, Xantho. Phil, Fhy. Laura could not breathe. No one breathed. L, said Mr. Foster. Mr. Cluett waited. Mr. Foster waited. It seemed that the waiting would last forever, and at last Mr. Foster said, well, then I'm beat. And he sat down. The crowd applauded him anyway for what he had done. He had won respect that night. Xanthophil, said Pa. It seemed impossible now that anyone could spell that dreadful word. But Laura thought, he just did it by process of elimination. Really, you think about it. Pa can, he must, he's got to, thought Laura. Zan, Xan, said Pa. Though, Tho, Xantho. Phil, Phy. He seemed slower perhaps than he was. Double L, he said. Mr. Cluett clapped the speller shut. There had never been such thundering applause as the applause for Pa. He had spelled down the whole town. Some of his people spelled down other people. Then, still warm and stirred up, everyone was getting into their wraps. I don't know when I've had such a good time, Mrs. Bradley said to Ma. The best of it is to think that we'll be having another meeting next Friday, said Mrs. Garland. Still talking, the crowd was streaming out. and lanterns were jogging toward Main Street. Well, do you feel some better, little half pint? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Well, do you feel some better, Laura? Pa asked. And she answered, Oh, yes. Oh, didn't we have a good time? Thank you for joining me for Little House on the Prairie. No, Little Town on the Prairie, chapter 18. Next chapter will be chapter 19, The Whirl of Gaiety. Of cooking, I've had to change the way I cook. So used to one way, but I have to keep learning. Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, I've got to do my patrons live stream, which will be on in about 10 minutes. So I love you guys. Take care. God bless. Thank you for joining me for Little Town on the Prairie. And maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. God bless. Poke.